Radio is broadcast on Mark Levin Show channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I thought we'd do something a little different. I think very interesting today. There is a full-bore PR machine going on, pushing various agendas and various ideologies. The progressive ideology, backed by billionaires, is being pushed very, very hard out there. Various nonprofit groups, various media platforms and outlets. Of course, they're politicians. There's a full-bore push out there also for the progressive Republicans who have access to these liberal outlets, like the New York Times, Washington Post, Politico, not to really explain who they are, in fact, to conceal who they are, but mostly to trash conservatives. There's another push going on in this country, the nationalist populist push, an ideology that is very unclear in many respects because it often refers to itself as conservative. But if it's a true nationalist populist movement, much like the progressives of the late 1800s and early 1900s, it's less conservative and more progressive in the end. At least that's my take. But what isn't happening is a full-throated explanation and endorsement of constitutional conservatism. You're not going to hear it from the vast majority of politicians. You're not going to hear it from the vast majority of hosts on any cable network. You're not going to hear it from most radio talk show hosts. Many of them have already surrendered it. You're not going to hear it from the President of the United States because his defenders will tell you he never said he's a conservative. And they're right, even though he does some good conservative things. You're certainly not going to hear it from McConnell or Ryan or the rest of them. And much of Washington conservatism has fallen behind Trump because they want him to succeed, as do I. And they reject the attacks on him by the Democrats to try and destroy his presidency, as do I. However, accepting the fact that he's not a conservative, although he does some conservative things, accepting the fact that the Republican Party is no longer a conservative party, as Reagan left it, and accepting the fact that the progressive movement is riding high in all aspects of our society, well, I'm going to continue to push an even more focused, in a more focused way, conservatism, because to me, conservatism is nothing more than a representation of Americanism. And if we do not defend our founding principles, there is no other political element that will. There simply is no other political element that will. And what's interesting now is I'm finding some of the columnists, some of the hosts on TV and radio who back President Trump no matter what are now trashing conservatives. And so this effort, this ideology, or this cult of personality type activity that's taking place, sees conservatism as an obstacle or as an idea that needs to be pushed aside. And we're going to need to fight over this. And that's a healthy thing. Donald Trump will not be reelected president of the United States if he loses the conservative base. I don't care how many so-called nationalist populists are out there, because most people don't identify with that nomenclature. But he cannot win without the conservative base. I'm not talking about the never-Trumpers and all the rest. I'm talking about the conservative base, the Tea Party grassroots base. It's not possible. And you need not attack the conservative base in order to win blue-collar Democrats. Our 40th president of the United States, Reagan, demonstrated that with two massive landslides, both in the popular vote and the electoral college vote. I see these things. What has conservatism ever done? I don't know, but a hell of a lot more than nationalism, populism, I can tell you that. But conservatism has done a lot, actually, over the decades. There was a piece some time ago by Charles C.W. Cook at National Review, and he just hit some of it. You can think of some of it yourself. Since Reagan made his first serious presidential run in 1976, conservatism has produced a cornucopia of significant changes, not only to government policy, but to the baseline presumptions of American life. Among these alterations are the tarring and feathering of the reflexively technocratic mindset it obtained from the outset of the New Deal to the end of the 1970s, the marginalization of wage and price controls and of other centralizing tools, the lowering of destructive tax rates on income and other forms of wealth, the deregulation of a significant number of major industries, like ours in talk radio, a renewed focus on national sovereignty, the successful reform of the welfare system, a consensus around free trade, a much lower minimum wage, a focus on both the text and original meaning of the Constitution when discussing limits on governmental power, the restoration of the right to keep and bear arms, the stronger protection of freedom of expression, a national partial birth abortion ban, the death of speech-killing campaign finance reform, so-called, and lest we forget, the peaceful dismantling of the Soviet Union. And he goes on and on and on. Conservatism has actually accomplished a lot when we elect a conservative president, which we've done twice in 100 years. Calvin Coolidge and Ronald Reagan. That's it. That's it. The current president doesn't claim to be a conservative. He said so, and his supporters say he's not. He's a different type of candidate, don't you know? So what is this conservatism? Is it a purity test? Is it unrelated to the real lives of people? And these attacks are coming from the populist nationalists. No, it's not that of any kind. I would refer you, and you can go Google it, to Ronald Reagan's 1977 CPAC speech on February 6, 1977, on his birthday. And I'll just cite some aspects of it. He said, 3 weeks ago here in our nation's capital, I told a group of conservative scholars that we are currently reordering of the political realities that have shaped our time. We know today that the principles and values that lie at the heart of conservatism are shared by the majority. When you think of conservatism, think of Americanism. That was the whole point of my book, Rediscovering Americanism. He said, despite what some in the press may say, we who are proud to call ourselves conservative are not a minority of a minority party. We are part of the great majority of Americans of both major parties and of most of the independents as well. And he cites a Harris poll and a Gallup poll. The time has come to see if it is possible to present a program of action based on political principle that can attract those interested in the so-called social issues and those interested in economic issues. In short, isn't it possible to combine the two major segments of contemporary American conservatism into one politically effective whole? I believe the answer is yes, he said. Yes, it is possible to create a political entity that will reflect the views of the great, hitherto unacknowledged conservative majority. We went a long way toward doing it in California. We can do it in America. This is not a dream, a wistful hope. It is and has been a reality. I've been the conservative future. I have seen the conservative future, and it works, he said. Let me say again what I said to our conservative friends from the academic world. Ryan Vision is not simply melding together the two branches of American conservatism into a temporary uneasy alliance, but the creation of a new lasting majority. This will mean compromise, but not a compromise of basic principles. What will emerge will be something new, something open and vital and dynamic, something the great conservative majority will recognize as its own, because at the heart of this undertaking is principled politics. I've always been puzzled by the inability of some political and media types to understand exactly what is meant by adherence to political principle. All too often in the press and the television evening news, it is treated as a call for ideological purity. And I might add, you read these knuckleheads and you hear them on the air saying exactly that. They sound like leftists because they have no comprehension of what it means to be a conservative. He said, whatever ideology may mean, and it seems to mean a variety of things depending upon who is using it, it always conjures up in the mind a picture of a rigid, irrational clinging to abstract theory in the face of reality. We have to recognize that in this country, ideology is a scare word, and for good reason. Marxist-Leninism is, to give but one example, an ideology. All the facts of the real world have to be fitted to the bed of Marx and Lenin. If the facts don't happen to fit the ideology, the facts are chopped off and discarded. I have said exactly the same thing. That's why we're not an ideology, we conservatives. We're a system based on human experience. He said, I consider this to be the complete opposite to principled conservatism. If there's any political viewpoint in this world which is free from slavish adherence to abstraction, it is American conservatism. When a conservative states that the free market is the best mechanism ever devised by the mind of man to meet material needs, he's merely stating what a careful examination of the real world has told him is the truth. When a conservative says that totalitarian communism is an absolute enemy of human freedom, he's not theorizing. He's reporting the ugly reality captured so unforgettably in the writings of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. When a conservative says it's bad for the government to spend more than it takes in, he's simply showing the same common sense that tells him to come in out from the rain. I can't read it all, but I'm bouncing around. He said when a conservative quotes Thomas Jefferson, that government that is closest to the people is best, is because he knows that Jefferson risked his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor to make certain that what he and his fellow patriots learned from experience was not crushed by an ideology of empire. Conservatism is the antithesis of the kind of ideological fanaticism that has brought so much horror and destruction to the world. The common sense and common decency of ordinary men and women, working out their own lives in their own way. This is the heart of American conservatism today. Conservative wisdom and principles are derived from willingness to learn, not just from what is going on now, but what happened before. The principles of conservatism are sound because they're based on what men and women have discovered through experience, and not just one generation or a dozen, but in all the combined experience of mankind. When we conservatives say that we know something about political affairs and that we know can be stated as principles, we're saying that the principles we hold dear are those that have been found through experience to be ultimately beneficial for individuals, for families, for communities, and for nations, found through the often bitter testing of pain or sacrifice or sorrow. One thing that must be made clear in post-Watergate is this. The American new conservative majority we represent is not based on abstract theorizing of the kind that turns off the American people, but on common sense, intelligence, reason, hard work, faith in God, and the guts to say, yes, there are things we do strongly believe in, that we are willing to live for, and yes, if necessary, to die for. That is not ideological purity. It is simply what built this country and kept it great. Now, when we return after the break, there are a few more paragraphs from this magnificent Reagan speech in 1977 that I want to read to you. Because I am concerned, ladies and gentlemen, that conservatism is under attack. It's under attack by the Republican Party, of course, but it's also under attack by a number of people who claim to be Trump supporters and by a kind of odd ideological attraction to something called nationalism populism, which is really an import from Europe and certainly not growing out of the American founding. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
February 6, 1977. At CPAC, Reagan went on. Let us lay to rest once and for all the myth of a small group of ideological purists trying to capture majority. Replace it with the reality of a majority trying to assert its rights against the tyranny of powerful academics, fashionable left revolutionaries, some economic illiterates who happen to hold elective office, and the social engineers who dominate the dialogue and set the format in political and social affairs. If there's any ideological fanaticism in American political life, it is to be found among the enemies of freedom on the left or right. Those who would sacrifice principle to theory, those who worship only the God of political, social, and economic abstractions, ignoring the realities of everyday life. They are not conservatives. Our first job is to get this message across to those who share most of our principles. If we allow ourselves to be portrayed as ideological shock troops without correcting this error, we are doing ourselves and our cause a disservice. Wherever and whenever we can, we should gently but firmly correct our political and media friends who've been perpetuating the myth of conservatism as a narrow ideology. Whatever the word may have meant in the past, today conservatism means principles evolving from experience and a belief in change when necessary, but not just for the sake of change. Once we have established this, the next question is, what will be the political vehicle by which the majority can assert its rights? I have to say I cannot agree, says Reagan, with some of our friends, perhaps including some of you here tonight, who've answered that question by saying this nation needs a new political party. I respect that view, and I know that those who have reached it have done so after long hours of study. But I believe that the political success of the principles we believe in can be best achieved in the Republican Party. I believe the Republican Party can hold and should provide the political mechanism through which the goals of the majority of Americans can be achieved. For one thing, the biggest single grouping of conservatives is to be found in that party. It makes more sense to build on that grouping than to break it up and start over. And let me say, so there can be no mistake as to what I mean, the new Republican Party, which is what I'm referring to, he says, the new Republican Party I envision will not be and cannot be one limited to the country club business image that for reasons both fair and unfair it is burdened with today. The new Republican Party I'm speaking about is going to have room for the man and the woman in the factories, for the farmer, for the cop on the beat, and the millions of Americans who may never have thought of joining our party before, but whose interests coincide with those represented by principled republicanism. If we are to attract more working men and women of this country, we will do so not by simply making room for them, but by making certain they have a say in what goes on in the party. The Democratic Party turned its back on the majority of social conservatives during the 60s. The new Republican Party of the late 70s and 80s must welcome them, seek them out, enlist them, not only as rank-and-file members, but as leaders and as candidates. The time has come for Republicans to say to black voters, look, we offer principles that black Americans can and do support. We believe in jobs, real jobs. We believe in education that is really education. We believe in treating all Americans as individuals and not as stereotypes or voting blocks. We believe that the long-range interest of black Americans lies in looking at what each major party has to offer and then deciding on the merits. The Democratic Party takes the black vote for granted. Well, it's time black America and the new Republican Party move forward with each other and create a situation in which no black vote can be taken for granted again. And he goes on in absolute brilliance. We have not ever had a candidate like this. We have not ever had a president like this. Steeped in principle. A man who understood his beliefs. A man who had a vision. A man who sought to accomplish those principles. I'll be right back. Now, Reagan wasn't just theorizing. Reagan won in 1980 and 84. Two massive popular vote landslides and electoral college landslides that no Republican running for president right now, or in the recent past, I should say, could ever accomplish. And he won over blue-collar Democrats by the millions. And he was supported by the Teamsters Union when he ran in 1980. And even the AFL-CIO sat on the sidelines. He was supported by Ralph Abernathy, a civil rights leader, the right-hand man to Martin Luther King. And Democrats flocked to support Reagan. That's why he won so many states. And not by a little, by a lot. By a lot. I remain amazed by the rejection of facts and history. It's not as if we're talking about 500 years ago. We're not. We're talking about 37 years ago, when the most conservative man to run for president of the United States since Calvin Coolidge had the biggest election landslide in modern American history, and one of the biggest of all times. And then after his policies, most of them were instituted, won by an even bigger popular vote and even a bigger electoral college vote, losing just the District of Columbia and Minnesota by about 2,200 votes. And yet, after his 8 years as one of the most successful presidents in American history of any president, his vice president, George H.W. Bush, lurched right back into progressive republicanism. And they haven't come back since. Now today, with the election of Donald Trump, with the help of constitutional conservatives and Reaganites, and I'm not talking about the never-Trumpers, I'm talking about those of us who voted, we're under attack. We're under attack by the usual suspects, but we're also under attack by people who claim to be the voice and the face for Donald Trump. Columnists, people on radio, people on TV, and so forth and so on. That you're a purist. Reagan addressed that in 1977. No, we're the majority, actually, based on our beliefs and values and traditions and principles. And yet we're called purists. The way the left and the media used to call us purists, now it comes from the pseudo-right. We are the only people of ideas and beliefs who speak of individual liberty. You don't even hear those words coming out of the White House. You don't hear them coming out of the House of Representatives. You don't hear them coming out of the Senate. They're all Republican. Free market capitalism. Today, that phrase, free market capitalism, is to be repudiated because we're told that it undermines working people. Free market capitalism is the reason why we have a massive middle class in this country. Protectionism is easy. Tariffs are easy. They also impoverish a nation. And God knows we have 12,000 of them. But all that aside, free market capitalism, the greatest economic model on the face of the earth, and those who are spewing anti-free market capitalism rhetoric, most of whom are enormously wealthy thanks to free market capitalism. Thanks to free market capitalism. Creates more jobs and more wealth for more people than any other model on the face of the earth. And there's a reason for it. It's based on individualism. It's based on liberty. It's inextricably intertwined with your personal liberty, with your private property rights. We're the only people of principle and belief and tradition who speak of small constitutional government. We don't back massive infrastructure projects like this is another New Deal, like that worked, which it didn't. We don't back new entitlements like family leave. We don't back the creation of new bureaucracies run by more and more politicians telling us who can trade with whom and so forth unless it's a national security issue, in which case, absolutely. We don't trade away our technology, our material, and our know-how to nations that seek to blow us off the face of the earth or that collude with such nations. That's a national security issue. But in the main, these principles, these beliefs, these values, these are conservative principles, beliefs, and values. And we shouldn't be ashamed of them. And we should speak up about them. The Reagan Revolution brought us Reagan. The Tea Party Revolution brought us a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican President. These are grassroots revolutions. Nobody led them. Nobody hatched them in a townhouse or in a university classroom or in a campaign. You're not sitting around waiting for some person to tell you what to think and to give a nomenclature to your attitude. You're way ahead. You're at the beginning of the parade. This movement, this anti-establishment movement, began long before the Republicans took the House, long before the Republicans took the Senate, long before Donald Trump decided he was a Republican. It began with you. This spontaneous uprising, civil, lawful uprising. And it's been percolating for years, was percolating for years even before the Tea Party movement. The Republican Party rejected the most successful, the most popular president in modern history and lurched back into progressivism, which is where it is today. McConnell, Lamar Alexander, John Cornyn, John Thune, all the usual faces and voices that you see on cable, network, and satellite TV. That's who they are. The President of the United States is not a conservative, even though he does some conservative things. How do we know? He says so. How do we know? His top supporters say so. They keep telling us it. Okay, great. And he has surrounded himself by many liberal Democrats. And yet, he's done some very significant conservative things, for which he deserves our support and our thanks, more than I had actually anticipated, and I'm very, very appreciative of it. But then when he cuts a deal with Schumer and Pelosi, we are told that this is part of some brilliant strategy. No, it's not. He cut some deal with Schumer and Pelosi. It's not a strategy at all. It's a disaster. You see, the president needs to lead his party, not react to his party. The president needs to change his party, not leapfrog his party and deal with even a worse party. The president needs to push his agenda. The president needs to demand the acceptance of his agenda from Republican leadership and so forth and so on. And so this has been a terrible failure, this administration. It's easy. I can get on the air and do what all the other talk show hosts do, but I'm not a pom-pom boy and I'm not a rockhead, which is to simply blame McConnell and Ryan. Nobody, I repeat, nobody has been on McConnell's case more than I or earlier than I. And for that matter, Ryan. And I was on Boehner's case before that. I know who these people are. I see what they're doing. I know what they're up to. But that does not excuse a lack of effective leadership coming out of the White House. Getting the right people around you, conservatives, some with experience, who know what to do. When you appoint a John Boehner senior staffer and top counsel to head all your personnel decisions at the White House, that is a bad mistake. That is a terrible mistake. And yet that was done. And this administration is yet to control the bureaucracy, or as people call it, the deep state, as I've called it for decades, the administrative state. It doesn't go away, but it's never gone away. And under this president, it'll never go away. You know why? He hasn't taken a single step to slash significantly government spending. In fact, the opposite. Well, I don't care what budget they proposed, but you saw what the president did with the continuing resolution. There we have just a 3-month bill, and he bought off on it. He got nothing. Conservatives got nothing. But I have to remind myself that his most ardent defenders keep reminding me he's not a conservative. He's an art of the deal guy. Well, you're an art of the deal guy, then how did Schumer get the upper hand? If you're the art of the deal guy, how is it that McConnell and Ryan continue to get away with what they get away with? Folks, I call them as I see them. And I'm not going to surrender my deeply held beliefs that I hold in my heart and soul and in my mind over any single politician. I defend this president to the hilt. When he's unjustly under attack, when they seek to push him out of office in a silent coup, when they seek to eviscerate him and his family, there is no more aggressive defender than I. But if you're going to lurch left, and if his defenders are going to start trashing conservatism, that is Americanism, while claiming they want to make America great again, well, I draw a line there, a red line, which I intend to defend. We conservatives, we apologize too much. We're too defensive. We've got a blitzkrieg going on from the west, from the east, and from the north. We're okay on the south. And we need to defend ourselves, and the way we defend ourselves is standing up with pride, looking at our true record when we actually have a president in office, explaining that we're the ones who've been fighting the establishment and the insiders for decades. We're not Johnny or Sally come lately on this. We're the ones that spawned the Tea Party movement. We're the ones that spawned the Reagan Revolution. And we're the ones who will spawn the next great movement the Article 5 Convention of States movement, which has its purpose to truly restore our republic. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Has said that, no, we're not going to link building a wall to this amnesty for DACA, that is for 31-year-olds and under, brought here through no fault of their own. So it's even worse, you see, what's happening than a lack of conservative principles or values or beliefs, which the top supporters to Trump have told us he's never been a conservative. They actually celebrate that. So what is it exactly? What is it? Just shoot from the hip? Shoot from the hip? And what is the basis on shooting from the hip? Well, the Republicans are blocking. Okay, great. Got it. Understand it. And that also goes to the White House lack of leadership. Okay, we talked about that. But what is the basis for shooting from the hip? Just to make a deal with the devil in the case of Schumer? Look, any idiot Republican president can make a deal with Schumer. Just give him what he wants. He'll come into the Oval Office with his snake oil. He'll give us that creepy smile that he has, like he's some guy standing in a corner with a raincoat. And then and the cornrows on his forehead. Yeah, I got it. Anyway, he sits there. Sure, you can cut a deal with Schumer. Any Republican cut a deal with Schumer. Just give him what he wants, which apparently is what's happening. But the Republican Congress is blocking him. Well, who controls the Republican Party? You need to change the Republican Party. You're in charge of the Republican Party. You're the leader of the Republican Party. Do something about it. No, you don't understand, Mark. This is we're playing chess. You're playing checkers. Okay, got it. Got it. So if Jeb Bush did this, as I said, 2 nights ago? Last week? That would be okay? No, it wouldn't. Can somebody tell me the difference between Jeb Bush's position on DACA and Donald Trump's position on DACA? Can somebody tell me the difference? There is no difference. You know, between your work grind and grueling schedule, it's easy to forget about the little things. But whether it's an out-of-the-blue gesture or just because, surprise, it doesn't take a lot to make your friend or loved one's day brighter with 1-800-Flowers.com. Nothing tops the excitement of a 1-800-Flowers bouquet, particularly when people don't expect it. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, 1-800-Flowers will give you another dozen, plus a vase, absolutely free. Got that? That's a big deal. This beautiful bouquet of 2 dozen roses in a rainbow of colors will leave your loved one stunned without spending a fortune. It's the best of both worlds. These gorgeous roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. So when it comes to life's most important moments, only trust 1-800-Flowers. To order a dozen multicolored roses plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99. That's right, $29.99. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on that radio icon, and enter the code Levin, L-E-V-I-N. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code Levin, L-E-V-I-N. Now, I want to remind you, I'm not one of these guys that wants to see Trump fail. I'm not one of these guys that seeks to sabotage his administration. I'm not one of these guys who cheers on the special counsel and so forth and so on. If you've listened to this program long enough, you know exactly who I am and you know exactly what I believe in. Through the primaries, through the general, and since. I haven't changed my beliefs or values or principles one iota. One iota. And it is not my purpose to sabotage this president. He's sabotaging himself. He views these little Pyrrhic victories as something to cheer. He's all excited about it. He calls Schumer and Pelosi afterwards and says, look at all the great press we're getting. It's not about great press, Mr. President. The media hate your guts. The media hate your guts. And they're always going to hate your guts. And even in your obituary, they're going to hate your guts. And not only your guts, they hate your family's guts. They hate your closest friends' guts. They hate your supporters. They hate your voters. They trash them all the time. Not going to get anywhere with the media. What, do you want a couple articles, a couple of stories talking about how you're changing the party system? You're not changing the party system. If you were changing the party system, you wouldn't be strengthening the Democrat Party. You'd be taking over the Republican Party and transforming it. But you're not. In fact, in Alabama, you're supporting the Rhino Republican for the Senate. Luther Strange. Who is? What's with the names of these Republicans? We got Strange in Alabama. We have Flake in Arizona. What's going on here? But in any event, why would you back a lapdog for Mitch McConnell? And by the way, notice those who write and speak on his behalf tell you what a brilliant move this is. Guys like Buchanan and others like Huckabee and Gingrich and so forth. Why don't they trash his endorsement of Luther Strange? Is there not a contradiction? Of course there is. When he picked Reince Priebus to be his chief of staff, a consummate insider, how come they didn't object to that? They never objected to that. Well, I did. I never liked the guy. I said, that's a huge mistake. Look who you have as your chief of staff. How come they kept their mouths shut when he appointed one of Boehner's top lieutenants to run personnel in the entire administration? They didn't say a word. I've been talking about that for months. It's not about me anyway. It's about getting the facts and the truth out. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, when I do the book signings, I meet thousands and thousands of people. What did I do, 5 book signings, Rich, or 4? I don't remember. Whatever the number, I'd say I've met, I think it was 5, probably met 10,000 people. And maybe more. Of course, that doesn't get any coverage, but I'm not looking for coverage. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not looking to impress the liberal media. And everybody kept saying, we like it when you discuss history. We like it when you get into philosophy. We like it when you get into these heavier topics and so forth. Now, I can't do that all the time, but I do it a lot of the time. And because the rating systems are so imperfect, and yet, despite that, we do such a great job on that, when I talk to you, you know, in the flesh, that's very, very important feedback. These rating systems are very interesting for radio. They're so imperfect. Take my show. Take me. I'm on AM radio. I'm on FM radio. I'm on satellite radio. I am on digital radio. Now that means, of course, downloading iPods, over 6 million a month. People listening on handheld devices, iPhones and Androids, over 3 million a month. Satellite, we have no idea. They tell us they have no idea. I have no idea because they don't tell me, but it's significant. On the Patriot channel, wonderful, wonderful channel. And as I say, AM and FM, and then we have live streaming. Notice, in each instance, my show is on an open platform. I don't charge you 1 penny to listen to this radio program. Not 1 penny. I don't charge you membership fees. I don't have anything behind a wall. Not 1 penny. And that was a decision I made early on, that we should reach as many people as we possibly can. So when these ratings come out for AM and FM radio, there's a couple things that may interest you. We'll get into the other stuff, but just bear with me. Unlike many other hosts, not all hosts, many other, I'm also, when these AM FM ratings come out, competing with myself on satellite, on Mark Levin app, on iHeartRadio app, and with the podcast. all of which are free. So the ratings for terrestrial radio, AM and FM, for me, don't tell the whole story. We've got these other platforms where millions of you are listening. That's number one. Number two, on the East Coast, this show airs live at 6 p.m. Right in the teeth of sporting events, whether your kids are playing sports and you're with them, or baseball, sometimes football, depending on the night, sometimes basketball, whatever it is. So we compete against that. And, of course, we compete against people who say, you know what, it's the end of the day, I'm going to eat my dinner, turn off the radio, that sort of thing. So this slot on the East Coast at 6 p.m. is a very, very difficult slot. And before I did radio, it was considered, we'll do an hour of local news and so forth, and then that's the end of the broadcast day. But since I've done radio, the 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. slot on the East Coast, and as you go towards the West Coast, obviously the time moves, has become very, very important radio real estate. Now, if I don't tell you this, nobody else is. Because I'm not among those that the trades like, that they write about, and so forth and so on. My company doesn't submit applications for me to win the Hall of Fame or Marconi or whatever the awards are. And your company has to do that sort of thing. I just do my thing. I'm not worried about anything else. So I just bring that up because I thought you'd be interested in it. I get people who say he's taken that position for ratings. I've never taken any position for ratings. I don't have any idea how my position would affect a ratings book, as we call it, or a diary, a one rating ppm. I don't have any idea how it would affect it. Unlike TV, where you get the ratings the next day and it's broken down by quarter hours, we don't get that in radio. We get terrestrial AM, FM ratings only. I don't get any other ratings for any other format. And we get it a month later. So it's not like you sit here, and I don't know day to day, and it doesn't break it down by days, let alone quarters in each day. You just know what the past month was. At least that's what I see. So people, hey, he's doing it for doing what for ratings? Exactly. So I don't do anything for ratings. I think you listen to this program because you want to hear a perspective you may not hear somewhere else, or you want to hear a perspective from somebody who you agree with, because there's nobody out there, or very few out there, who agree with you, to reinforce your principles. And that's great. That's great. I like to be around people who reinforce my principles. I don't mean all yes men and so forth, but I don't want to be around people I'm fighting with all the time. Do you? No. Of course not. But I think that's why this program is successful. There's one other reason. It's you. You're the smartest audience in broadcasting, TV or radio, or you wouldn't be here. 3 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. on the East Coast, times all in between. And I'll be talking about philosophy or history or economics. I won't be going down the websites and picking off the top 5 issues to go over with you and so forth and so on. I mean, we want to get into current events news. There's a breaking story I'm going to get to in a minute as an example. But we want to do more than that, don't we? If you're going to spend 3 hours with me, I want it to be worth it. It's like when I write a book. If you're going to buy a book from me, I want you to read something that maybe you haven't thought about or you didn't know about, something that's intriguing. If you're going to watch Levin TV and pay for a subscription, I want to make sure that you feel it's worth it. And same with all the other hosts on Conservative Review TV. They feel exactly the same way. That means you got to work at this. And not to change your personality. You know a fraud when you hear a fraud. You know you can't fool you. No host can fool you. They need to respect you, which I do. I do. Without you, there is no show. All right, what's the breaking story? It's breaking to a point. I mean, I'll explain a little background here. Justices allow Trump administration ban on most refugees, the Washington Compost, citing the Associated Press. The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to maintain its restrictive policy on refugees. The justices today, actually about 45 minutes ago, agreed to an administration request to block a lower court ruling that would have eased the refugee ban and allowed up to 24,000 refugees to enter the country before the end of October. The order was not the court's last word on the travel policy that Trump first rolled out in January. The justices are scheduled to hear arguments on October 10 on the legality of the bans on travelers from 6 mostly Muslim countries and refugees anywhere in the world. It's unclear, though, what will be left for the court to decide. The 90-day travel ban lapses in late September, and the 120-day refugee ban will expire a month later. This is no great victory, ladies and gentlemen. There was a time when the courts would not have been involved in this issue, period. And because we have radical leftists, mostly appointed by Barack Milhouse Benito Obama, to the federal courts, who are now appointed for life, but who do not conduct themselves as judges, objective when it comes to the law, objective when it comes to the facts, but they view themselves as masterminds in black robes. That's what judicial activists are. But for them, this wouldn't have to be at the Supreme Court. The rulings against the Trump administration and the president with respect to these travel bans, with respect to these refugee bans, are extraordinary. Are way off the radar. Way off the radar. Particularly when you consider the Supreme Court all but gave plenary power to the President of the United States to control immigration in the United States versus Arizona immigration case. Remember that one? Landmark Legal Foundation was involved in that one. So we're all supposed to cheer and pop the champagne bottle, I guess, because the Supreme Court didn't do any damage. The fact that it's in the courts is damage enough. The fact that these lower courts did what they did is enormous damage. And I don't know what the hell the Supreme Court wants to hear in oral argument on October 10. Should have shut this damn thing down. But it didn't. Now the courts control immigration. And by that I don't mean an honest assertion of judicial review. What I mean by that is the courts control immigration. So you got federal district judges in Seattle, and Hawaii, and Maryland, and wherever else the leftists are, who have decided what will and will not fly for the whole country. For the whole country. The whole system's been turned on its head. This is what happens when you live in a post-constitutional America. This is what happens when you live in Ameritopia. Title of another book. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Diane, Jonesboro, Arkansas, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
First of all, thank you for being you, and thank you for what you do. Okay?
Thank you.
I had a thought on the deal that Schumer and Trump made.
Right.
I wanted so much, because I was for Cruz, like you were, that I wanted to think the best of Trump. And I truly believe that he loves his country. And I think he did this for his country, and he did this for us. He went.
Let me just slow you down a second. He loves his country. I've always said he loves his country. It's one of the reasons I voted for him. But that doesn't mean I agree with him.
And he saw suffering, and he wanted to facilitate getting the aid to these
Oh,
people.
really? Well, then why didn't he say, you know what, let's get an appropriation supplemental on my desk in 48 hours?
The Republicans are sitting.
You're not
on
answering me. Why didn't he say, did you hear him say, I want an appropriation supplemental on my desk in 48 hours?
Maybe Schumer was the only route. He might have gone to the
Maybe
Republicans.
Schumer wasn't the only route.
Well, I would like to think that he did the fastest thing he could do to facilitate the help that these people needed. And I feel like I want to sit back and watch. This man is brilliant.
I don't want to sit back. Okay. This man is brilliant. You want to sit back and watch. We're getting nowhere in this country. Do you understand? Nowhere.
Pardon?
We're getting nowhere in this country. Nowhere.
I agree with you. But
okay, hold on now. Let's not pretend that Trump's not president of the United States and that he's incapable of doing things, okay? And cutting deals with Schumer, you're telling me you had to cut a deal with Schumer in order to help Houston? I don't believe that for 2 seconds.
I think it was a strategy.
It wasn't a strategy. It was a complete sellout.
I think he's trying to get the Republicans to do something, and this might be his
You're
way
not
of
the first
doing
to
it.
say that. You're about number 10 million to say that. And that's baloney. So your strategy is to lurch left with Schumer and Pelosi in order to get the Republicans to do something who are progressives themselves? Is that what you're arguing?
No, he's not.
Well, that's what he did.
The Republicans are already left themselves. They're all.
So why would they care? So why would they care if he cut this deal?
Well, I do know they've made comments about the Democrats didn't get such a good deal, so something's going on.
But most of them voted for it. It got 80 votes in the United States Senate.
I think that.
So why? Hold on now. I'm following your logic. So why did all these Republicans, who Trump is really sticking it to, why did they vote for it? Exactly. Because this argument makes no sense. I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying this argument, which you've heard elsewhere, which has been written elsewhere, is nonsensical. If they wanted to vote on Houston, they knew how to vote on Houston, and the President of the United States should have drove it and made it impossible for the Democrats to say no. I want a clean bill. I want a supplemental appropriations bill. I want it on my desk in 48 hours. Let's go. He never said that.
We don't know that he did. He maybe not.
No, I do know that he didn't say that because we didn't hear him say that.
He could have said it.
All right, thanks for your call. Folks, I can't help it. When people are so into the cult, I can't fix it. Because you become, somebody like that becomes ideological. And not ideological on matters of beliefs and values, ideological on the man. Ideological on the man. That's fine. I saw it during the Nixon era, too. Same damn thing happened. He could have this. How do you know he didn't say that? And he was showing the Republican. These are all talking points. You can read columnists all over the place saying the same thing. None of that's true. We know what happened. He wanted to cut a deal with the Democrats. He loved the praise that he got from the media, and he wants to do more of it. Well, that's great. But that's not based on anything. And the idea we wouldn't have gotten the money for Houston, why? Why wouldn't we have gotten the money for Houston? Well, maybe this was the only way. Well, why was this the only way? He has to show leadership. That's what he has to do. And I'm just pointing that out. Let's go to Victor, Detroit, Michigan on Sirius Satellite. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you, Mark?
Very well, thank you.
Good. You know, my comment is I'm so tired of listening to everybody giving Trump an excuse.
Well, did you hear the last caller?
Sorry?
Did you hear the last caller?
Yeah, and I'm tired of it. You know, they need to just, Trump should have stood up, and he should have straight out said, look, if you're not going to give me the money for these victims of the hurricane, then I'm going to tell everybody who you are, that you wouldn't give the money, and that you don't care about the American people.
If he had stared them down, he would have won. There's no question about it.
Exactly. And I'm tired of everybody's excuses.
And by the way, he didn't even try. Not even for 2 days, he didn't even try.
Nothing. And I voted for this guy, and I expect better of him.
I'm trying to tell people, including the Trump people, particularly those in the White House, you keep trashing conservatives, or your surrogates do, your media surrogates and your other surrogates, you keep dissing conservatives, you're going to pay a price for it at the election. I don't mean they're going to go vote for liberal Democrats. I mean they're not going to vote. And the other thing is, if we want deals with Schumer and Pelosi, we would vote for Democrats, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, we don't want deals with Schumer and Pelosi. And if the Republican leadership is so ineffectual and we lose, repeal of Obamacare such as it was a ridiculous repeal. It wasn't really repeal. But even that vote, by 2 or 3 votes, that calls into question all the Republican leadership, doesn't it?
No.
It does to me. Yeah, I'm tired of the excuses, too. You and I, we are prepared to defend the president to the hilt when he's, when they're trying to eviscerate him, destroy him, undermine him, when they're trying to block his fairly conservative agenda. But when he's cutting deals with Schumer and Pelosi that he doesn't have to cut, that's a whole other story. And when he's threatening to do more, and he's being encouraged to do more, We have to speak out. We can't just pretend these things aren't happening. If Jeb Bush were doing this, or Marco Rubio were doing this, or John Kasich were doing this, or Lindsey Graham were doing, how do they explain DACA? That wasn't a Republican thing. He just flipped on DACA. Absolutely flipped on DACA. How do they explain that? They don't explain it. I'll be right back. Folks, I need to talk to you about something that I think is very important. There's a huge misconception surrounding the United States Concealed Carry Association right now, and I need to clear things up. You do not need your CCW permit to be protected. Whenever you carry your gun or keep it under lock and key at your home, you still need self-defense insurance. Remember the story about Buddy, the Army vet, who was arrested on his own property just for defending his family? If you're still thinking that you'll be declared the good guy when an attack happens in your home, you're leaving your family vulnerable. There will always be an investigation, and that means bail money and lawyer fees your family shouldn't have to pay. Now, the good news? Well, the good news is you can shield yourself immediately with a USCCA membership. Activate today and you'll get a $75 range bag completely free. Let me repeat that. Activate today, you'll get a $75 range bag completely free. And I'm talking high quality and limited edition range bag. But you have to hurry. There's only a limited amount, and they're going very fast, so please act now. Hurry over to defendthem.com and secure your free range bag. That's defendthem.com, defendthem.com. Get your free range bag and get protection. It's a wonderful organization. It really is. All right. It seems like Bill Ayers has endorsed the Antifa terrorist movement. No surprise there, but as I recall, that was Barack Obama's buddy. Mr. Producer, can you believe that the call screen just disappeared on me? Give me the name. Do we have a disagreeer out there? Or just give me... Go ahead. Okay. Give me a name, please. John, on the great WBAP, Dallas, Texas. Go.
Yeah, hey, Mark. Hey, I'm glad you brought up Ronald Reagan earlier, because Reagan said in 1988 that he used to be a Democrat, but he didn't leave the party. They left him, his conservative values. Well, I think we're in the same situation, Mark, because except for a few conservatives like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, I think the Republicans have left us conservatives. They've left me. They left you. They've left the entire conservative.
What else did he say when I read his speech?
Yeah, so I think we need to turn to the Constitution.
Hello? What else did he say when I read his speech? What is wrong? When I'm talking, they can't hear? What else did he say when I read the speech out loud?
What
else did he say about starting a third party?
I don't remember what he said about starting.
Oh, you don't remember what he said? He said he wanted to take over the Republican Party and create a new Republican Party, that he disagreed with starting a new party. You didn't hear that part?
I don't recall that part, no.
Yes, well, it's there. You can check it, February 6, 1977. But let's work through this. When is the last time there was a successful third party? Can you tell me?
Yeah, I don't know, because there's not enough signatures. They don't allow the other two parties.
Forget about signatures. Nationally, when has there been a successful third party?
There hasn't, because there's too many restrictions.
Are you a libertarian?
No.
You're a Republican?
I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative Republican.
What are you registered as?
I'm registered as a Republican. I vote in Republican primaries.
Okay. And you're saying it's too hard to get listed on a... Do you know there's at least 48 third parties in this country?
Yes, I know that there's a lot of third parties, but I think the Constitution Party...
So in other words, what I'm saying to you is there's not a lack of third parties, you know.
No, I know.
What it really is, John, is people have a mindset, and they identify either as Democrats, Republicans, a minority identify as a third party, and some identify as independents. It's not a matter of legal obstacles. It's obviously there's some, but it's a matter of the mindset. And that was Reagan's point. He's saying, look, we already have a conservative base in the Republican Party. We've got to use it to take it over. And he did. And he was a very successful president. He wasn't perfect, but he was great. He wasn't perfect, but he was great. And so, to me, that's the model.
Right.
That's the model. You'll spend 50 years trying to create a third party. 50 years. You know, the last really big third party was the Progressive Party. If my recollection is correct, maybe it's not. But I'll use it as an example. And, of course, Woodrow Wilson came in first, Theodore Roosevelt came in second, and Howard Taft came in third. And we got Woodrow Wilson. Are you there?
Right. Yes, I'm there.
So tell me how the math on this would work. The Democrats remain united, and the Republican Party has a percentage that splits off to the, let's say, the John Party. Your name's John. Whatever you want to call it. So how do we win? Which was Reagan's point. You can spend all your time doing that, or we can take this institution that belongs to us anyway and take it back, which is what he did.
Right, but do you think another person has...
But which Trump is not doing.
But is another person able to take it back like Reagan did?
Well, we got to find them and promote them.
That's
and
true.
fight for them.
It's not
simple.
I'm all for that, Mark.
Well, I'm all for it, too, so help us find them, but it's not my responsibility.
Right. I know.
All right, I'm just walking you through it, because people say, hey, let's go third party. You know, people say, and you, Levin, you're a sellout. You always go Republican. I'm trying to figure out how this will work. So I'm better if I say, all right, I'm backing the Constitution Party and Ernie Grabotsky, who's running for it. And I bring, let's say, 4 million people with me. And Bernie Sanders is elected president, or Elizabeth Warren, or Kamala Harris, or one of them. But at least I didn't vote for her. At least I... Well, you know, but my kids and my grandkids have to deal with that.
Right.
All right, John, thanks for your call. Let us continue. All right, let us go to Andy, Hayden, Idaho, Sirius Satellite. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I disagree with what you're saying, and maybe a guy thought Trump was going to be kind of what you're talking about there. I mean, now there's just no real difference between the Republicans and the Democrats that are in there.
Well, I don't agree with that. The Republicans are progressives, but the Democrats are radical. They're very, very radical. They would have single-payer health care by now. There would be a lot. They would be giving citizenship to illegal aliens. So there are differences. The problem is they're not conservatives, which is, I think, your point. Nobody is unraveling what they're creating. Nobody's pushing back to restore our republic. That's the problem, right?
Exactly. And, you know, I just think Trump should have took a harder stance. Like that woman saying, well, he's making some sort of a deal with them to do something. No, he should have stuck to his guns and done the things that you talk about.
I'm with you. I mean, this cut and run stuff, well, I can't get what I want from the Republicans, so I'll go with Chuck Schumer? Really? That's the alternative? And, of course, you're not allowed to criticize. You're not allowed to say, well, this is on you, Mr. President. That's your damn party. Take it over. Take control over it. Knock some heads together and do what you need to do. I mean, don't start making nice with Chuck Schumer and Pelosi, and then you see all the excuses being made that somehow this is a genius move, somehow this will undermine the Republicans, somehow this, somehow that. This is all Washington gobbledygook. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the country. And I would point this out, my friend, when it comes to DACA, well, he did that unilaterally. He said, I want a statute that codifies what Obama did. When he ran for president, distinguishing himself from all the other Republicans by saying, I don't believe they should get anything. They should be deported. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, and it's just hard to believe he's floundering this fast. You know, it only took this many months, and he's already, you know, going back on it. It's just disheartening.
Well, it's going to be up to you and me to try and bring him back, because obviously the pom-poms and the Rockettes, they're not going to do it. They're singing his praises left and right, which they certainly would not do for any other Republican who was cutting deals with Schumer and Pelosi, nor should they. All right, Andy, thanks for your call, buddy. Let us continue. Lynn, Las Vegas, Nevada, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hello.
Well, I wanted you to know that I actually read that Reagan CPAC speech that you opened the show with, and I even posted a link on my Facebook page a few years ago. It was a wonderful speech. And Mark, I also happen to be black.
Yeah.
I voted for Reagan, and not because of that speech, but because Reagan at the time, during his first presidential term, well, he helped me realize that it was the Republican Party that I had a philosophy with which really I could identify with. And it just seemed to me by the time I made a decision to change parties that I actually shared the values of the Republican Party. Not that they're the same party today. I get that. They're not. They are every bit progressive, as you say.
You share the conservative values of the Reagan Republican Party.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right, Mark. I just wasn't convinced that Republicans, and I'm still not, were the party of the few and the privileged, that country club image, fat cats, racist at heart. I never bought into that. I really never was convinced of that. And I see it every day today that they're not. Republicans are not like that. I know many Republicans that are white and that don't have a racist bone in their bodies. And so that doesn't wash with me. And let's see, what else did I want to say to you? Oh, I saw the interview. I saw the C-SPAN interview.
Oh.
I thought you were great. I thought you were scholarly.
By the way, I had a horrible cold. I don't know if you could tell, but I appreciate that.
Couldn't tell. I thought you were scholarly. Your voice sounded great.
Yeah.
You were confident and very handsome.
Oh, my goodness.
I have your new book, and I know you had encouraged us to read the book before the interview, which I admit I hadn't done, but I'm reading it now. Slowly, very slowly, because it's not an easy read.
It's a heavy book.
To be focused. Yeah, I have to be focused. And then just one last thing, Mark. I'm a huge fan of yours, by the way, and I'm just so glad I got a chance to say hi to you and to talk. Anyway, I know that you grew up with the Motown sound, and you've always liked R&B music.
Yep.
Well, you might remember the well-known Philly DJ named Georgie Woods.
Oh, yeah.
That was my father.
That was your father?
Yes. Can you believe that? Yep, my father, the late Georgie Woods.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure. Call again, okay? That's really cool.
Okay, Mom, take good care.
And don't forget the sound of Philadelphia now.
Yes.
There was that, too.
The sound
All right.
Okay.
God bless you. What an honor. Thank you very much. It's a small world, after all, as I say. It really is. Yeah, I've been a big fan of Motown since I was a teenager. I love it. Love it. R&B, too. Love it. Just do. I like all kinds of music, but that's sort of my zone right there. Isn't it, Mr. Producer? Aren't I always sending you those songs saying, add this one, add this one? All right, folks. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Maybe I will after the show. You never know. You know, we celebrate Constitution Day every September. I know you value the Constitution and the rights it secures. But we really need to know the basics, don't we? We can't really celebrate something if we don't understand why we're supposed to celebrate it. And that's part of the problem in this country. But Hillsdale College wants you to know the foundations of your freedoms. So Hillsdale has brought back for a limited time their free online course, Introduction to the Constitution. You can take the course at your own pace, in the comfort of your own home, or with family, friends, even your book club or small group. Each lesson is under 15 minutes long. And now you can download a free course companion booklet that includes discussion questions for hosting your own Constitution study group. This is a college, ladies and gentlemen, that is reaching outside the classroom to us, to the entire nation. This is remarkable, what Hillsdale College does. And you can get it all at Hillsdale College. Go to levinforhillsdale.com, Levin for Hillsdale.com. The course and study guide are free. They're offered as part of Hillsdale's mission to educate Americans nationwide for liberty. And by the way, they don't get any government money to do this. They don't take any government money at all. At all. It's all private. Now, once you register, you can watch the lessons anytime you want. So sign up now in honor of Constitution Day. Pursue truth, defend liberty with Hillsdale College. Sign up while you still can. Go to levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. Hillsdale College has been with us a very, very long time. We were the first. And it is a wonderful institution, and it's a deep and great honor to have them as a sponsor. with their great president, Dr. Larry Arnn, who is a personal friend of mine. And it was an honor of mine to give them one of the rarest copies of the Federalist Papers, which is on exhibit in their Washington, D.C. office on Massachusetts Avenue, and in a secure display, and you can go there and you can see it. I think you have to call in advance and that sort of thing, but it's easy to do. I hope you'll check it out. All right, let's see who else we have here. Okay, Chris, Green Bay, Wisconsin, the great WTAQ. Go.
Hey, Mark, I'm really upset. It's unconscionable what Trump has done. I voted for him. I wanted Cruz, but I tell you what, man, I can't even listen to him anymore. He's a BSer, and he went there to drain the swamp. He's sleeping with the swamp creatures is what he's doing, and it's ridiculous.
Well, what has put you over the top here?
Just the fact that he's in bed with Pelosi and Schumer. It's like those are the two worst people, and he's doing deals with them. It's just, I can't stand it, man. I mean, I got the...
Well, what do you think of the arguments that, well, he's doing it, because he can't work with the Republicans?
Well, then he needs to jack up the Republicans and get them off their butt.
And I'm thinking, so in other words, he needs to lurch left, sell out his voters, work with Schumer and Pelosi, who got 100% of what they wanted, and somehow you and I are supposed to be convinced that's how you deal with the Republican Congress?
Well, I'm on the Convention of States. I got that book you sent me, and I'm going to sign up. I'm super busy, but I'm going to get going. They got a cosaction.com, and they got a Wisconsin chapter. There's a bunch of people on there, so I'm going with that. But what do we do if we get Convention of States going, and then some stupid judge in Hawaii blocks it? I mean, Well,
here's the good news. If a stupid judge in Hawaii tries to block it, then the stupid judge in Hawaii is a rogue judge. And those state delegates from those state legislatures continue to do what they're doing, and they ignore that judge.
Okay.
Since when is there judicial review in that matter? That would be my view. I don't even know if everybody agrees with me who's in this Convention of States movement. My view is that would be a judge acting ultra vires without authority. That Constitution gives the states the authority to do this. And if a judge tries to block it or overturn it, it is the judge who's conducting himself or herself in an unconstitutional fashion, and that convention goes forward, period.
That swamp needs to be drained, too, and it's going to take
You're
a
not
lot
kidding.
of years.
It's not going to be drained. What has to happen is we need to take our country back, and the way we do that is to take our Constitution back.
Exactly. Well,
and we give the states the power to enforce it.
Yeah. I'm just so upset with Trump. He was talking the other day on some radio show. I had to turn it off. It's like, okay, now what are you going to lie to me about? It's just ridiculous. It's so corrupt. It's scary what's going on, and you got these.
Well, I'm trying to point out, and I've been pointing out for a few days, there is a massive conservative base that's under attack, that's watching, and is not particularly happy right now. I can tell you, I'm part of it. We're not out to harm the president. We don't want to destroy his presidency, but we don't want him sabotaging himself and sabotaging us either. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Now, I'm going to play a few sound bites. And first, I want you to hear from Hillary Clinton. Not about her book. I don't care about her book. I'll let everybody else play those clips. But here she is talking about Convention of States. Now, she's heard about it. And she's worried about it. Cut 9, go.
I think Trump, left to his own devices, unchecked, would become even more authoritarian than he has tried to be. Also, remember, the right wing, aided and funded by Mercers, Koch brothers, etc., is very serious about calling a constitutional convention.
All right, let's stop there. I know nothing of the Mercers and Koch brothers getting involved in the Convention of States. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I'm not aware of it. I certainly have never talked to any of them. personally, indirectly, by any form or means when I wrote my book, The Liberty Amendments. And this is how it works. So now I have to defend the Mercers and the Koch brothers when I don't even know the Mercers or the Koch brothers. I think I met Charles Koch many years ago when they had me speak at their events, and I never heard from them since, at one of their events, about my book, Liberty and Tyranny. But that said, I don't know them. I don't deal with them. And it's not about me anyway. I'm just pointing out when I wrote the Liberty Amendments, they had no say in anything. So the fact that you have a movement afoot with millions and millions of people in the grassroots supporting it, now it's bought off and paid for by billionaires. Quite precious coming from her. That's number one. Number two, it's not a constitutional convention. It's a convention of the states. That's what the Constitution calls it. A convention of the states. To amend the Constitution. So, just as 2/3 of the House and Senate can propose amendments for ratification to state legislatures or state conventions, requiring 38 now to ratify, states can get together and propose amendments to all the rest of the states, including themselves, all 50 states, where again they need 38 state legislatures or state conventions to ratify. So rather than Congress making the proposals, because Congress won't make proposals to control Congress, the states make proposals to control Congress and the presidency and the courts and the bureaucracy. There's no other way. There is no other way, as you are experiencing, as you see. And the fact that we have a Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican President should underscore the point that this is not going to fly. They couldn't even repeal Obamacare. They're all pointing fingers at each other. And they lie about what they promise, all the branches. So this is the only way to restore the Republic, and it's the way that the framers presented it in the Constitution under Article 5. And for the life of me, these pseudo-conservatives and others who reject this, who fearmonger, are incomprehensible. Absolutely incomprehensible. They'll go on and talk about and write about federalism and the 10th Amendment and how they're strict constructionists or textualists or whatever. But when it comes to this amendment, they're no better than the left. This process, that is, Article 5, they write it right out of the Constitution because they don't agree with it. In the end, they're not very conservative, now are they? They're not constitutionalists. Let's continue with Hillary. Go ahead.
They need 34 states. Last I checked, they were like at 28, 29.
Let me stop. This is incorrect. This is the balanced budget amendment guys who've run off with their own convention of states, saying that they have 28 or 29 over the past decades and so forth and so on. I'm not interested in purely a balanced budget amendment. That doesn't fix a damn thing. You need to control spending. You need to control taxes. Yes, you eventually need to balance the budget, but you need to control the debt. Balancing the budget in and of itself is not enough. Even more, we need term limits for members of Congress. We need term limits for Supreme Court justices. Even more, we need to control the bureaucracy and the regulations that the bureaucracy kicks out with a process, among others, that I propose to control it, and on and on and on. It's not enough to just, we're going to balance the budget. Well, that's great, but it's not enough. It doesn't address the fundamentals, the problems that have been enshrined in our system and have uprooted our constitutional system. Go ahead.
Their gerrymandering is to control state legislatures, elect Republican governors, and to call...
All right, stop. How do you gerrymander to elect Republican governors? Governors run in the entire state. So how do you gerrymander to elect Republican governors? It's not possible. It's irrational. But let's hear her conspiracy. Go on.
Constitutional Convention.
So stop. So in other words, they want to gerrymander the state legislatures and the Republican governors to call a constitutional convention. Number one, Republican governors have nothing to do with it. The president has nothing to do with it. The state legislatures do it. So the Republican governors have nothing to do with it. They can promote it. They can push it like our man Abbott there in Texas. But they don't sign it. It just is what it is. And notice how everything that we do at the grassroots is evil, is corrupt. So the only way you see that we're able to get these state legislatures in Alabama, in Georgia, in Florida, and most of these Republican states is because we gerrymander. This is a nasty, stupid, angry person. Go ahead.
Deep into what they are advocating, limits on the First Amendment. No.
Whoa. Who is advocating limits on the First Amendment? I'm telling you, folks, this woman is a certified liar. Who's advocated limits on the First Amendment? Last time I checked, that was the left. Last time I checked, that was Chuck Schumer, Donald Trump's reacquainted new friend, who was proposing an amendment to control the First Amendment. Remember that? Last time I checked, it's the campuses and universities all over this country that are trashing the First Amendment. Nobody's proposing any change to the First Amendment. Anyway, go ahead.
The Second Amendment, limits on criminal justice.
Nobody's proposing any changes to the Second Amendment. We want to defend the Second Amendment. It's you. You. Criminal justice system. Go ahead.
I mean, there is a very insidious right-wing agenda.
Jeez. She's nuts. Insidious, yes, because we believe in the Constitution. She's a radical progressive, always has been and always will be, as we know. That's what cracks me up, is she's the liberal establishment versus Bernie Sanders. No. That's not true. Bernie Sanders is Trotsky. Hillary is Lenin. That's all. Different degrees, but the same ideology, as far as I'm concerned. So nobody's going to touch... well, that's not true. The people who are attacking our Bill of Rights are the people in Washington, D.C. They have a constitutional convention every day. They have a hell of a good time in Washington, D.C. Whether it's the courts, whether it's Congress, whether it's the bureaucracy. In the case of Barack Obama, they were having a constitutional convention 3 days a week. They didn't call it that, but they were usurping it. They were eviscerating it. They were going around it to enshrine their ideology within the Constitution, right? So this is all scare tactics, and the stronger we get on this, the more we're going to have to deal with this. But I just assume we get stronger with this. It's the Republicans I can't stand in these state legislatures who claim, we want federalism. We don't want the EPA telling us what to do. We're sick and tired of Congress passing laws and not giving us the funding. On and on and on. And then we say, hey, boys, girls, you have the power under Article 5 to change this. Well, we don't want to do that. Oh, my God. Look, we can't do that. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, your state representatives and your state senators have an obligation under the federal Constitution, under Article 5, to restore this republic and this Constitution. They have an obligation under Article 5 to do it. Read it. Bill Ayers, ladies and gentlemen. You know, these old terrorists. He's a domestic terrorist, a very violent man. He and his lovely girlfriend at the time, Dorn, he was interviewed on a podcast by Jamie Weinstein. And Bill Ayers was asked about Antifa, you know, the violent Marxist anarchist. I've never understood this Marxist anarchist since, are you aware of any Marxist regime that isn't a centralized, totalitarian, genocidal regime? So what's this anarchist part? What, that they hate America? Anyway, this Marxist movement with these thugs go up and they attack people violently, as you well know. We've gone over it many, many times. And here's what Bill Ayers had to say. Go.
It's been documented they've engaged in violence, often unprovoked. And is that something you would support or condemn?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? Because when John Brown invaded Harper's Ferry, unprovoked violence, I agree. I support that. Don't you?
So we know John Brown, 1859, in Harper's Ferry, then Virginia, but eventually West Virginia. And I believe half a dozen people were killed, something like that. And he was an abolitionist, and he believed in violence. in order to end slavery, and he said enough of this talk. And, of course, this was one of the major events that would ultimately lead to the Civil War, which, of course, is very, very violent. But listen to his situational ethics. Yes, violence is accepted under certain circumstances, but not under every. I mean, what about Adolf Hitler and what he did to gain power? I mean, I can point to example after example after example after example. This has nothing to do with slavery, any more than it has anything to do with the Third Reich. That is, this is America. This is America in 2017, where people have a right to protest, the people have a right to rally. But you see, you reach a point where those who claim to be the anti-fascists are the fascists. So would Bill Ayers think it's okay if somebody walked up and punched him in the face for what he did in the past and what he represents for the future? I don't think so. And I don't think they should. So everybody determines for themselves whether they're violent or not? There was more. Go ahead.
The reality is we live in a society steeped in violence. It's steeped in structural violence. And when people stand up and object, then they somehow are the violent ones.
You're a moron on top of everything else. How are we steeped in structural violence? What kind of a clown is this? It's steeped in structural violence. Yes, by the left for the most part, as far as I know, but we're steeped in structural violence? Just truly pathetic. And then there's Nancy Pelosi. I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to the rhetoric, the sort of rhetoric that creates violence by Nancy Pelosi. Hat tip Free Beacon, and in the prior case, hat tip Jamie Weinstein and his podcast via Fox. Anyway, cut 5, go.
So a week and a half ago, I was in Chicago, and I saw this art exhibit that I was invited to see. It's called And Then They Came For Me. And it's about the internment of the Japanese-American patriots in our country who were interned into camps during World War II.
All right, stop. Now notice she doesn't mention who ordered that. Their great hero, Franklin Roosevelt. They will never admit it because he's way too important to the progressive movement to ever admit it. Or if they say it, they dismiss it. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, and by the way, may I have a latte? Go ahead.
We're fighting for freedom for America and for the world in World War II. They were in camps, and they came for me. And now they're coming for the dreamers.
Oh, they're coming for the dreamers, are they? And is somebody suggesting we round up the dreamers and put them in internment camps? See, the Democrats do this stuff. And then they blame everybody else. The Democrats are a violent, hateful, organized party throughout American history. And I've gone over it time and time and time again. And yet it is the dirty big secret that the media ignore. CNN will never report on the history of the Democrat Party. MSNBC will never report on the history of the Democrat Party. Neither will any of the networks. They won't do it. Because the history of the Democrat Party didn't begin in 1960, 1970. It began long before that. It's the party of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow and poll taxes and literacy tests. Oh, yes, 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 all those things. And, did I mention, the party of the internment of Japanese Americans. Them, that party. It's the party of the Ku Klux Klan. It's the party in 1924 in New York at the Democrat Convention that refused to reject lynching. 1924. That wasn't that long ago. And now she's talking about the dreamers. And now they're coming for the dreamers. Who's coming for the dreamers? Trump? Trump's not going to deport a single dreamer unless they've committed a crime, a violent crime. That's what he said. Go ahead.
This is something that we owe these dreamers for their patriotism.
We don't owe anybody anything, lady. We don't owe anybody anything. And I'm sick and tired of that. No respect for the rule of law. No respect for the American citizen. No respect for the dreamer kids of the American citizen. We don't owe anybody a damn thing. Listen to her. Barely complete her sentences in any rational way. All right. Let's go to Scott, St. George, Utah, the great KDXU. Go right ahead.
Hey, Mark, but, to her point, even if we do owe them anything, which we don't, how about we at least try to negotiate and get something out of the deal instead of just fall in line with Chuck Schumer?
Well, we now know that's not going to happen because the president is all in.
And my point to you is, a long time ago, Mark, you mentioned back during the primary that these pom-pom waivers and boys in tights and pseudo-conservatives, boys and girls both, that they're not doing him any favors. This was long before he got the nomination and just shortly thereafter. Not doing him any favors, that every time he came out and spoke in ways that were not conservative, they just cheered him along as though he's a genius businessman, and nobody ever called him to task. I think we're ruining that right now because I voted for him. I was a Ted Cruz guy, but I voted for him because we had two choices.
And the point is today, they're not doing him any favors right now by telling him, yeah, now you're going a third way, Newt Gingrich. Yeah, now you've changed the tone by working with the Democrats. No. It's not working with conservative or moderate Democrats. It's working with Schumer and Pelosi. That's different. Thanks, brother. I'll be right back. I like Chicago, too. What do you think of that? They're bullies. Remember I told you the IRS hired private collection agencies to stalk folks back, their back taxes? Well, the New York Times called them out for bullying tactics, like demanding you ask your boss for a loan to pay your taxes or load up your credit cards or take out a second mortgage. If you owe back taxes, or if the IRS says you owe back taxes, don't be bullied. Don't take on the IRS alone. Call my friends at Optima Tax Relief. They'll step between you and the IRS and solve those tax problems that keep you up at night. And ask Optima about the Fresh Start Initiative. The IRS is offering it right now. It could save thousands, even tens of thousands. And nobody knows it better than Optima Tax Relief. They're A+ rated from the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $500 million in tax debt for their clients. And by the way, your consultation, it's free and it's confidential. Let me repeat. When you call them for an initial consultation, it is free and it's confidential. So check them out. They're professional, they're experts, they have the background and the experience to help you. Call 800-499-6300. 800-499-6300. 800-499-6300. Now, there's other services, but they're not Optima Tax Relief, which has been around for a good while, highly rated, highly regarded, highly respected. So if you're under these circumstances, I know you're stressing out, just give them a call. Like I said, your consultation is free and confidential. That's 800-499-6300, 800-499-6300. Now, there are reasons, of course, to defend Trump and to be furious with what's taking place against him. Our friends at the Media Research Center have done a rather thorough study. The broadcast network evening newscasts remain as hostile as ever to Trump. Since Inauguration Day, Media Research Center analysts have reviewed every mention of President Trump and top administration officials in ABC's World News Tonight, the CBS Evening News, and NBC News Nightly News, including weekends. As of August 31, coverage of the administration has totaled nearly 74 hours. That's 4,418 minutes of airtime, or about 39% of all evening news coverage. That's astonishing. Now, for comparison purposes, coverage of the Obama administration in all of 2015 and 2016 totaled 59 hours, or roughly 10% of the available broadcast time. In other words, Trump has already received more coverage in his first 224 days in office than Obama received in his final 2 years as president. Analyzing the network's spin makes it clear that the goal of all this heavy coverage is not to promote the president, but to punish him. In June, July, and August, broadcast evening news coverage of Trump was 91% negative, worse than the astounding 89% spin we calculated during the first 3 months of the administration, usually a traditional honeymoon period for new presidents. So the media are out to destroy Trump. There's no question about this. And virtually all of the media. There's a few safe harbors, but not many. Virtually all the media are out to destroy Trump. And it is an endless drumbeat. And I think in part that's why he's looking for these deals, even with radical kooks like Schumer and Pelosi. It's wearing them down, these attacks, as you might imagine, any human being. But still, you got to stand up against it. Jeff, Hayward, California, the great KSFO. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good, Mark. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Well, I just wanted to kind of give a message about how we're failing, I feel like, America's youth. I'm only 28 years old. I'm in grad school right now at USF, and I'm just sort of disillusioned with how the Republican Party, a party that my whole family is part of, we believe in Reagan, how everything that they want to stand for never seems to get accomplished, yet the Democrats always get their vision across. If you look at how we've abandoned our principles, namely the Constitution, I cannot believe how far we've strayed from that beautiful legal text where all of our freedoms are founded on. The Republican Party needs to get back to principles, because if we stray from the Constitution, we can kiss this country goodbye. With the way the Democrats are going.
Well, what do we do if the majority leader has no significant principles? The speaker is prepared to throw his principles out the window, principles he used to have to be speaker. And the President of the United States prides himself, and his supporters pride themselves on not being conservative. What do we do?
In my honest opinion, I think we need to look at ourselves first. Because these people are in office because ultimately we elected them.
I know, but you know what? Many of us have looked at ourselves, particularly in this audience, and they have voted for people who've made promises to them, and they have followed the process that the Constitution provides, and it's not working. And that's why some of us are looking at other elements of the Constitution to find relief, to find recourse, like Article 5 Convention of States. And that's why I've spent this entire program explaining conservatism as it relates to Americanism and why these principles are absolutely crucial. We need to discuss them among ourselves, with our families, with our friends, because they're under attack. They're not only under attack by the left, but by the pseudo-right. And people now are very prideful of the fact that they're not conservatives. And then they misidentify it. They purposely define it in ways that aren't correct, as you know, you must believe in purity, you must believe in this, that, and the other. And these are superficial and purposeful attempts to undermine the only philosophical movement in this country that talks about the Constitution and its limits on government, that talks about individual liberty, that talks about individualism, talks about the Declaration and natural law, talks about private property rights, that includes free market capitalism and things of that sort. And we're under attack because there are various movements going on out there that believe in big centralized government for one reason or another. All right, Jeff, I appreciate your call, my friend. Wes, Wilmington, North Carolina, Sirius Satellite, go.
I just wanted to express my sincere frustration and disappointment with lack of any accomplishments so far between tax reform and a reform of Obamacare. But the latest increase in the debt ceiling and inability to expose bipartisan politics, why we couldn't pass an aid bill for Harvey independent of any of this other fat just is really confusing.
We got a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican President, and none of them put up a separate emergency appropriation. Instead, we got to buy all the Democrat agenda in order to get the people the help they need in Texas. Now, that's absurd. That's baloney. You got to cut a deal with Schumer and Pelosi. That's the weak way out. You could have fought for a week or two. You could have demanded a clean bill. You always hear them talk about a clean bill, a clean appropriation, emergency appropriation. Get your asses back in Washington and take care of this stuff. President would have been applauded. He would have been celebrated. But instead, you cut deals with Schumer and Pelosi. I don't get it. Well, I get it, but I don't like it.
Keep up the good fight. I'm extremely disappointed. This was an opportunity to set things in the right direction, but keep up.
And what about DACA? What is that? You ask these same people, what about that? That has nothing to do with the Republican leadership. The president on his own has told the Republican leadership and the Democrat leadership, you take this Obama executive order and you turn it into a statute so I can sign it. Now, that's not what he said on the campaign trail. That's not what he said in these debates. That's what Jeb Bush said and Marco Rubio said and Kasich said and Lindsey Graham said. Uh-oh. He's gone. Well, it happens. Andy, Rockville, Maryland, the great WMAL. Go.
Hi, Mr. Levin, and thank you for helping shape my political ideology on an intellectual level. You're a treasure to this country. Well, I just have to say, we have to go back again to the media. This has nothing to do with the game of chess or whatever. This has to do exactly with the media. The Republican Party are like battered wife syndrome and child battered syndrome when it comes to the media. They get beat down. But I thought Trump, that's one of the reasons I supported him, not in the primary, but in the general. I thought, okay, we got a guy that's going to fight back. Because that's what has to happen. In order for us to get the media to report fairly and everything, we have to fight back. And they had a chance to do it. They could have stuck up for the man after that Charlottesville bull crap. They should have stuck up for him, because what he did, he didn't say anything wrong. He said everything correctly. And instead, what does the Republican Party do? They backstab him.
Yep, that's
true. I'm not defending him. I'm not defending him on this. But what scares me is he's got this new 28-year-old communications director. She's easy on the eyes, but she's a friend of Ivanka's, and she's only 28 years old.
She's a friend of who?
Ivanka.
Oh, Ivanka. Okay.
That's how she got into the Trump family. And now she's communications director, and she's only 28 years old. I don't really know her politics, but if this is a sign of it, like appeasing the media. Let's do it this
way. Where are the constitutional conservatives, the Reaganites, if you will, in this administration? Are they? I'm talking about on the policy side. Are there any in the upper senior circles?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Levin, and that just baffles my mind also. Where are they? Who's he talking to? I mean, when it comes to conservative issues, he's talking to Ted Cruz, he's talking to Mike Lee. It boggles the mind. But going back to my media, what they're doing right now, the media, maybe they'll give him a little leeway, because they've been looking for ways to separate his base from him from the beginning, and this might just do it. If he tries to appease the media and the Democrats in order to get good press, that's one way he's going to. And then it's not going to matter, because a couple months before the next election, the congressional election, they're just going to bury him again. I mean, like you said earlier, they hate him. They hate his guts. They hate us. But if they play along nicely with him, that's exactly what they'll do.
Well, I would encourage the president and his senior staff to take a look at the Nixon administration. It's not an exact parallel, but it's good enough. Nixon caved and caved and caved. He gave them what they wanted, the EPA, OSHA, affirmative action. I can't think of everything, but it's numerous. And they took everything they could get from him. As I mentioned, I guess it was last week, they took everything they could get from him. And then, of course, they did everything they could to be rid of him. Now, if the Democrats take the House of Representatives, I am telling you right now, and the backbenchers may want to pay attention to this too, they're going to impeach him, or they're going to try to impeach him. And the more he props up these Democrats, the more he props up the people who are going to destroy him. If he's concerned about the Republican establishment, damn it, then take them by the heads and knock them together. You're the leader. Do something about your party. It's your party now. It's not my party. Right? It's not our party, even though we may be members of it. He controls the party. We don't control the party, right, Andy? So he needs to do something about it. And what's he doing about it? Nothing. Nothing. In fact, as I say, in Alabama, he bent over backwards to help McConnell's guy. Does that make sense to you, Andy?
Not at all. And that's still, I scratch my head on that. And why? And maybe it's because he is a novice in politics and he doesn't.
No. Because he takes it personally. Because the two Republicans running didn't endorse him in the Republican primary. So he figures, screw them. I'll back this guy. It's self-defeating. I'll give you another example. When you look at Orrin Hatch. Orrin Hatch said very nice things about Trump early on. Orrin Hatch will never support the Trump agenda. Never. And Orrin Hatch's best friend in the Senate for decades was Ted Kennedy. Orrin Hatch came on my show, got my endorsement last time around, promised he was a conservative, said he would never run for re-election, and now I'll decide in January. The guy is contemptible, as far as I'm concerned. He lied to me, he lied to my audience. Look, it happens. I'm not perfect either. But that said, he likes Orrin Hatch, and he'll endorse Orrin Hatch. Now, that's not how you make changes. The problem is, if you're not a conservative, if you don't have a cerebral or at least an instinctive feeling for what's right and wrong as a matter of principle, and you're willing to cut deals with Schumer, you're willing to see this Luther Strange guy, you're willing to back Hatch, well, then you're not going to get too far unless you lurch left. And that's the problem. Andy, great call. I appreciate it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Time doesn't stand still, so don't waste another minute. Join AMAC right now. AMAC is the Association of Mature American Citizens. It is the leading conservative voice for Americans aged 50 and up. And they are resolved to continue their mission to restore America's moral compass, to make America a better place for our children, and to save America from liberal ideology. Are you 50 or up? I am. I'm going to be 60 in a week or so. And as an AMAC member, I'm a member. You'll also gain access to a variety of exclusive benefits and discounts that will help you save money, from car insurance and Medicare plans to discounts on hotels and car rentals and more. AMAC is the organization to join. A voice for conservatives in Washington, exceptional discounts and benefits. What's not to love about that? I want you to check them out. I'm quite serious. If you're 50 or older, join AMAC right now. Just go to their website, www.amac.us. That's www.amac.us. Or they have a toll-free number. You can call them at 888-262-2006. That's 888-262-2006. The Association of Mature American Citizens. The benefits are great, but the cause is even greater. Join AMAC today, and I'm telling you, they are a patriotic organization. It's not like the AARP. If you're a member, get rid of that. It's AMAC. It's the conservative alternative. They are a conservative, pro-American organization that works to promote our agenda on Capitol Hill and elsewhere. And they have outstanding discounts and benefits for you as well. It's perfect. It really is. It's perfect for people 50 and over. So call them at 888-262-2006 or go to www.amac, that's AMAC.us. It's an outstanding organization, and we're proud to have them as a sponsor. All right, as we're coming to the closing of the program, it went very quickly, I thought. By the way, do you think I enjoy having to call out the president from my perspective or our perspective? I don't enjoy it for 1 second. On the other hand, we have to have integrity, right? We have to be true to ourselves. And so that's what we're doing, and that's who we are. And I think that's why you're in the audience, and I'm blessed to have you. All right, let's go to Mike, Independence, Missouri, the great KCMO. Go.
Hi, Mark. Great to talk to the great one.
Thank you.
Yeah, we talked about how he didn't have to make a deal with the Democrats, but let's look at it this. What if he had to make a deal with the Democrats on hurricane relief? The Democrats have become the party of fake victims. Why would they ever vote against money for actual victims of natural disasters? Who would vote to give tons of money for it? I mean, it's just idiocy.
I agree with you. I, in fact, and politically, I don't think they would have done that. That is, I don't think they would have passed on it. In fact, they probably would have tried to raise, above what Trump would have been proposing. But we don't know. They didn't try.
Yeah.
That's what drives me nuts. We have everybody telling us what he could have done. Maybe he was doing this. He was playing, chess at a level we checkers players don't understand. Well, why didn't he just try a clean bill, get it through, push it hard? Well, you don't know that he didn't. Well, I know he didn't because nobody said he did.
Exactly. And talking this chess stuff sounds to me like he just checkmates himself all the time. I don't see this chess. You put yourself in checkmate.
Listen, Congress is worthy of our blame and our contempt. They really are. And they are quite progressive. But the president is the president. He is the bully pulpit. Why is it that when they have the presidency, they control everything, or the Senate for that matter? Ladies and gentlemen, we salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. Continued good luck in Florida, in Texas, and Louisiana. We haven't forgotten you. God bless you. I'll see you on Levin TV in 2 minutes. I'll see you on the radio tomorrow.